Good morning. Good morning. And welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Urbana-Champaign. My name is Reverend Sally Fritchie, and I'm the Associate Minister of your church. I am so glad to be here with you all in person. I invite you to look around you, look into the faces of the people who are here with you, and know that you are loved. You are not alone today. And those of you who are at home watching this service as it premieres on YouTube, welcome to you as well. Know that you are part of this community and take a moment now to feel the love beaming out to you from all those assembled here. Our congregation's mission is to build community seek inspiration, promote justice, and find peace. We are a church of many theologies that values deeds before creeds, a church that strives to build beloved community in the here and now. This congregation has found ways to be together throughout this pandemic, gathering virtually, nurturing small groups, providing mutual aid, and living into the truth that the church has always been more about the people than about the building. In that spirit, we are gathered here at the park where we held our in-gathering water celebration in August to celebrate All Souls Sunday together. All Souls, traditionally the first Sunday in November, is a day to lift up the names and memories of all the people we have lost in the past year, and to honor all of those who have gone before. If you remember to bring a photo or memento of your own loved ones who have died, whether in the last year or before, as you arrive, you should have been invited to add that to our altar. And if not, don't worry, there will be a time later in the service for everyone to walk back and place our candles and photos there. All Souls is a day that is both solemn and joyful, as we allow ourselves to mourn our deep losses while also celebrating the ways in which our beloved dead live on in our memories and in the echoes of life they left behind. Before we begin today, I'm afraid I have some very sad news about a young member of our congregation who has died unexpectedly in just the past days. Josh Bell died this Thursday at age 25. I don't have any further information about the circumstances of his death, but I know Josh was deeply loved here at UUCUC. He joined us 2 years ago and was the talented jazz musician who accompanied our children's choir and our crooner singing group right up to the start of the pandemic. I recognize that news of his death is a terrible shock to those here who knew and loved him, and I wanted to give you as much time as possible today to be together in processing it. His photo is not on our altar, but his spirit will be lifted up and mourned alongside all of those who are. And we will light our first candle now in memory of Josh. His light is the first one to shine from our altar today. Whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you believe, please know that this community, this service is here for you. Though we are in person, we're going to continue our online tradition of submitting our shared joys and sorrows via email. And there's still time to make your own contributions and share what's on your heart today. To do that, just email your message to joysandsorrows@uucuc.org. Remember to be considerate of all the things that come with in-person worship. Bundle up if you're cold. Feel free to move around if you need to. And the porta potties are available just behind me near the parking lot. Everyone here today is here because they chose to trust in each other's willingness and ability to gather in a COVID-safe way, which means masking, distancing, and respecting each other's preferences around hugs or handshakes. We are going to invite everyone to sing together while staying masked later in the service, and the choir and UU band will be singing from up here. So now is a good time to think about whether that feels like a safe thing for you, and if you want to shift around or move a little further out from the crowd, please go ahead and do that with my enthusiastic support and encouragement. One of the most wonderful things about church is the way it serves as a meeting place for so many people, across generations, across school districts and neighborhoods, and unfortunately, it's that exact intermingling that makes church a place for showing extra caution. So thank you for being here, and for everything you are doing to keep our most vulnerable members safe and included in this community. I'll also remind you that after the service today, there will be a conversation and Q&A hosted by the members of this congregation who have been meeting every month since the beginning of the pandemic to try to make informed and ethical recommendations for how we might gather. Reverend KB will lead us through a conversation over what guidelines we're currently using, possible changes to those guidelines, and what it will look like to return to the sanctuary for hybrid platform Sundays. There will be a brief break after the service while the musicians and AV team pack up, but all of you are invited to stick around and be part of this important conversation starting at 11:30 today. Finally, this congregation chooses to begin every Sunday together with a formal acknowledgement of the indigenous nations of our land. It's a practice that connects us to the history of this place and to our own responsibilities as stewards and members of a wider community. So please take a moment to bring to mind the indigenous peoples and histories of this land we call Urbana, Illinois, the United States of America. There will be a moment of silence after the acknowledgement, and in that silence, I ask you to make a commitment to yourself, to take one action today that you didn't yesterday in support of ongoing Indigenous activism. We recognize and acknowledge that we gather today on Indigenous land, taken through deception, coercion, and violence. We acknowledge the continued displacement and oppression of Indigenous communities and strive to lift up Native commitments to survival, identity, and the protection of this beautiful world. And now, if you are watching from home and have a candle or chalice to light, now is the time to get it and join us in marking out this time we share as something sacred and connected. Today, our chalice will be lit by Sam Shears.
Good morning. We light our chalice today with words written by our own Florence Cappelo, Reverend Florence Cappelo. As we kindle this flame, we honor and remember those who have passed into the mystery. Their brightness lives on in our vision, their courage lives on in our commitments, and their love continues to bless the world through us.
Good morning, family. You know, Reverend Sally's sharing that news hit me. I never knew Josh. And I want to say that I know that there are those of you who did. I will be saying a little bit more about myself and introducing the hymn in a moment. And then I will sit back down. If you're someone who feels like you need to talk a little bit, just come get me, okay? If you're someone who knew Josh and need to process. We're all family here. Just come up and we'll go talk a little bit. The helicopters are a reminder that life is fragile. Those are, I'm assuming, patients that are being transported. And those of us who've lived here for any length of time find it, I'm sure, a stark part of reality that, again, loved ones come and loved ones go in this life, but they always stay in our hearts. So as the helicopter noise comes, I invite you to, in the quietness of yourself, in your own way, I do this when ambulances go by. I just bless them. And say whatever, that we acknowledge that there is suffering all around the world. And the helicopters are very audio reminder. That being said, we're here together at last. Can you hear Reverend Sally's sparkle and joy? And I tell you, she's been beaming about this for weeks, and it's contagious, and it's not hard to take it in because I've loved you guys for a long time. I came across the UU when I was in seminary in the early 80s in Chicago, hanging out in Meadville Lombard with my bib overalls and my waist-length hair and bare feet. And I was in a place where I belonged as a Baptist student I was one of the only women around, surrounded by guys in three-piece suits. So, and it continued on to I found the UCC for my home, where I was pastor on campus for 33 years. But Channing Murray had the audacity or the heart to invite me in as a board member in the late 80s. And then I supervised your UU seminarians here whenever we had some in town working at Channing Murray. And then there was a year where the UU students came over and took me to coffee and said, would you be our campus minister? I melted in a pool. I said, of course I'd love to be. So I was honored to share, to be part of the family in that way. And I was nicely ensconced into retirement when I got a call from the board saying, would you consider through Reverend Florence? And I said, no, I love retirement. And then I only met your Reverend Florence like 3 times, though I was in love with her for years after I heard so much about her. What a beautiful, amazing spirit. And she said a Reverend Florence thing. I know this, because you don't have to be around her long. I was with her maybe 6 hours total to take in what her power and her spiritual beauty, her heart. And she said, well, just see what speaks to your spirit and your heart. Just see what speaks to you. And I'll tell you what, the next day I woke up and my spirit and my heart were jumping out of my chest. And I'm like, it's you guys. It's you guys. So there's no other place. There's no other people. It's the UU. And so I'm honored and I'm privileged and I'm truly full of joy to be a part of your family for however long that's meant to be. My heart is yours for keeps. All right? So I'd like to, I have the privilege of introducing a hymn, and I'd like to see a raise of hands if who here has ever heard of Wendy Luella Perkins? Well, this is Reverend Sally's idea, and I thought it was a brilliant one. She said in the churches she served at, she learned to share a little bit about a hymn before you sing it, and it just takes you a little bit more. And I agree with that. And this remarkable person that wrote this hymn and composed it and did the lyrics, I wanted to share about. This is Wendy Luella Perkins, the Reverend, was raised in a farm in Nova Scotia, out in the boonies. And she found connection and substance in the fields, woods, birds, and animals that surrounded her. As a teen, her social concern for social and ecological justice was awakened. This darn mask, pardon me, I'm just going to have to hold it. As she experienced and witnessed violence, oppression, and environmental degradation. Then she began to weave the arts into her activism. And she went on to become a UU pastor. And one of the things, many things that she loved about with the UU is drawing inspiration from all the world religions, from science and arts, from each person's direct experience of mystery and wonder. And isn't that what we all love? Including questions. I'm a question lover. I'm skeptical of answers. And I have a feeling I'm not the only one in this crowd. So this is something that all these went into creating this hymn that Benjamin is going to sing with us, sing for us, and lead us in singing. And on that note, with no further ado, we're going to sing together hymn number 1010, which you have, I guess we don't need the paper. Benjamin's going to bring us the words in responsive singing. So family, it's really wonderful to be together with you. We're all in this together, right? Yeah. Right, all right. Let's sing.
All right, let's give thanks for this opportunity to gather together. I'll sing it first, then I'll cue you all in. We give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here, for those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Okay, now I'll give a line, then you sing it back. We'll do a little call and response. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here, for those far away, for this time we share with love and care. We give thanks for this precious day. One more time through. We give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here, for those far away, for time we share with love and care. We give thanks for this precious day, for this precious day.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
That was just beautiful. My first time getting to hear you all sing in person, so that was absolutely lovely. My name is Rose St. Clair, and I'm the coordinator for religious exploration and engagement here at UUCUC. And I'm actually joined this morning by Adrian Summerlot, who is our consulting director for religious exploration and engagement here at UUCUC. And Adrian is joining us this morning all the way from Bloomington, Indiana. Yes. And this morning, we wanted to share with you all a very special story called The Memory Tree. You'll notice that at some of the tables, in the baskets, there are paper leaves. Or maybe you picked some up at the welcome table. And if you do need any, you can feel free to find some of the baskets or raise your hand and someone can bring you one. But we would like to invite you to use these leaves to write or draw a memory of a loved one this morning. If you weren't able to find or bring a memento of a lost loved one with you today, please feel free to use one of these leaves, and you will be invited later during the service to bring these leaves back to the altar. There are also ribbons so that you can tie them onto the branches of our very own memory trees. Okay. There was once a fox who lived with all the other animals in the forest. Fox has lived a long and happy life, but now he was tired. Very slowly, Fox made his way to his favorite spot in the clearing. He looked at his beloved forest one last time and laid down. Fox took a deep breath and closed his eyes forever. Everything around Fox was still and peaceful. Snow began to fall, gently covering him with a soft blanket. Owl had watched Fox from the top of his tree. He flew down and landed next to his friend. Owl was very sad. He had known Fox for a long time. But Owl knew the time had come for his friend to leave. One by one, Fox's friends came to the clearing. First Squirrel, then Bear, Moose, Bird, and finally, Rabbit, Mouse, and others
came to sit by Fox. You see, Fox had been loved by everyone. He had been kind and caring. No one could imagine life in the forest without him. The animals sat in silence for a very long time. Owl was the first to speak. He smiled warmly and said, "I remember when Fox and I were very young. Every autumn, we raced to see who could catch more falling leaves." The other animals remembered and smiled. Mouse was the next to speak. Mouse said softly, "I remember how much Fox loved the sunset. He always sat at this exact spot." The animals remembered. Many of them had joined Fox, watching the sun go down. It was a happy memory, and their sad hearts filled with warmth. Bear remembered how Fox had looked after her cubs one spring. Rabbit smiled when they told the story of how Fox had played tag with them in the fall grass. Squirrel talked about Fox helping him dig up buried nuts in the deep snow last winter. One by one, the animals remembered their favorite stories about Fox. Fox had touched the lives of all the animals in the forest with his warmth and kindness, and they all smiled, remembering. While the animals talked, a little plant grew out of the snow where Fox was laying. Small and delicate at first and hardly noticeable. The plant grew bigger, stronger, and more beautiful in each story. The animals talked about Fox all through the night. And in the morning, the little plant had grown into a small tree. The animals saw the tree and knew that Fox was still a part of them. During the next few days, weeks, and months, the animals remembered many more stories together about Fox. Their heavy hearts began to feel lighter. The more they remembered, the more the tree grew. Higher and more beautiful, until it was the tallest tree in the forest. A tree made from memories and full of love. Fox's tree was big and strong enough to shelter all the animals. It was always buzzing with life. The birds built their nests among the leaves. Owl raised his grand chicks on the branches. Squirrel found a cozy home in the trunk. And bear and moose and rabbit and all slept in its shade. The tree gave strength to everyone who had loved Fox. And so Fox lived on in their hearts forever.
Yes, we black porches in the rain. Yes, we black porches in the rain. Empty now from the heavy load.
Have you ever heard a coffin sound?
Have you ever heard a coffin sound? Have you ever heard a coffin sound? The end of the ground. There's one my favorite I'll ask of you. There's one my favorite I'll ask of you. There's one my favorite I'll ask of you. See that my grave is got you. See that my grave is kept clean.
Incredible. There is no substitute for music. Amen. The cultures of the world have many different ways of honoring the dead and of holding their memory sacred. Just last Sunday, we heard from our own Virginia Brubaker about pagan beliefs and practices around Samhain and the veil between the worlds. And a week ago, Monday, people of Mexican heritage were celebrating the Day of the Dead, setting up home altars piled high with food, flowers, and photographs of beloved ancestors. Some of us visit graves on significant anniversaries to leave flowers, speak prayers, or simply remind ourselves of how much time has passed. We have funeral processions, days of remembrance, keepsake boxes, 1,000 different ways of grieving loss and holding on to memory. And here at UUCUC, we have All Souls Sunday, a steady, reliable beat in the rhythm of our church year, when we pause to acknowledge those we have lost in the past year. Our Universalist forebears made their break from Christian orthodoxy because they believed in universal salvation, a heretical belief. They insisted that hell, as it was popularly understood, did not exist. A loving God would not condemn imperfect humanity to an eternity of suffering. Whatever came in the next world, they believed, should not be the only thing shaping our behavior in this one. And whatever salvation there may be, it is surely for everyone, universally. For some, that meant heaven and hell are things we create for ourselves here and now, and they got to work trying to help one another and build a paradise on earth. For some, it meant branching into more interfaith understandings, letting go of the fear that having a wrong belief would bar them from heaven. Among Unitarian Universalists today, you might not find any two who believe exactly the same thing about what happens after you die. But we are united in these moments of ritual, of tradition and community, when we come together to honor the universality of death. We hold many different beliefs about the nature of life and death, but what our Universalist heritage teaches us is that no matter what fate awaits us, it is ultimately a universal one. Whether that means our souls will ascend to be with God, or our bodies will feed the earth and rejoin the life cycle, or our spirits will flow back into the collective to be reincarnated, or our atoms will dissolve back into the cosmos, and an infinity from now will birth new stars and new planets. We do not celebrate All Saints' Day, as in some traditions, but All Souls' Day, because all souls are worthy. We will not be separated, ranked, sorted into heaven or hell. Wherever we end up, we will be there together. We lit our chalice this morning with words from Reverend Florence, honoring those who have passed into the mystery before us, and promising that their love will continue to bless the world through our actions. Indeed, the presence of those we love continues to echo in every memory we have of them, and every time we're inspired to live by their example. Every photograph, old birthday card, familiar recipe has the power to conjure the presence of those we've lost, like a thread of connection we can hold on to. Every time we hear their favorite song, or catch the scent of their perfume, or wrap ourselves up in the quilt they made, we keep that connection very much alive. And it doesn't have to be all sadness and mourning. It is possible to approach such somber topics with joy and celebration. It's possible to greet death sometimes with silence and sometimes with song and the ringing of bells. On All Souls Sunday, we not only mourn those who have died, but celebrate the lives that they lived. In a moment, I'll ask you to pick up the bells that are in the baskets on your table, or here at the welcome table if you didn't get them. Bells are part of many funeral rituals. They ring out to mark the passing of a soul into the next world, or to scare away bad luck or harmful spirits, or as some would teach us, to mark an angel hitting their wings. Memorial wind chimes, too, are part of some traditions, turning every stray breeze into a sweet, audible reminder of the voice of the departed. We are here in the park today without our majestic bell tower bell to ring, so we're going to turn our collected community into a wind chime of sorts. Starting, let's say, in this corner with our choir waiting in the wings, and flowing all the way around to the people on the lawn. So look at the person directly next to you, because that is the person whose cue you will be following as we attempt to have a flow of bells. If you've ever done the wave at a stadium before, this will be somewhat familiar. First, I will lift my bells and ring them just next to my ear, followed by Jim, and then next to him, Sam, and then all the way around. And you're not watching me, you're just watching the person right next to you for your cue. And guess what? If we do it wrong, we'll try again. And nothing bad will happen. So I'll lead us in trying it a couple times to get it right, and then a couple times just to listen and enjoy the experience of being surrounded by this delicate sound and hear the collective ringing as a reminder of all the lives that we gather each year to honor. Once we get the hang of it, you can even close your eyes and enjoy just being carried by a wave of delicate ringing. All right, are you ready? You're not looking at me, you're looking at the person next to you.
Question, real quick. Is it going to go around and around, or once it starts, it just stays on?
Let's say once it starts, we all ring together, and then I will stop, and then Jim will stop, and then we'll go back to silence. Thank you for the question. All right, are we ready? Let's try it. Oh.
like a rustling of leaves. All right, we're gonna try another round. Ready? Beautiful. What does it sound like to you? To me, I hear a sigh of breath moving across the crowd, a rustle of leaves, and the ever so quiet tinkling of wind chimes blowing in the wind. It is traditional to read the names out of community members who have died in the year since our last All Souls service. Since it has been 2 years since our last in-person All Souls, I'll be reading the names of those who have died in that 2-year period, 15 names in total. I will read each name, make a promise that they are not forgotten, and then we will let the breath of their life move through us again, ringing our bells in a wave, just like we did before. And as you ring your bell, as we all ring together, I invite you to repeat the name back in whispers just inside your mask or in shouts. If you're watching this from home, you may not be able to join us in the ringing and the signing of leaves, but you can join in speaking the names. And I invite you to do so, even if you feel silly speaking into your empty living room or kitchen. Because there is power in speaking aloud the names of those we've lost. So if we're ready, I'll begin reading the names. Bob Spitzy. You are not forgotten, Bob. Ray Watson, you are not forgotten, Ray. Ann Reeser, you are not forgotten, Ann. David Sutton, you are not forgotten, David. Jim McGlathery, you are not forgotten, Jim. Bert Swanson, you are not forgotten, Bert. Sherry Gillis, you are not forgotten, Sherry. Nan Ehrlich, you are not forgotten, Nan. Carrie Alice Lynn, you are not forgotten, Carrie Alice. Claire Zoe, you are not forgotten, Claire. Judy Feldman, you are not forgotten, Judy. Jim Hines, you are not forgotten, Jim. Olive Clark, you are not forgotten, Olive.
Jean Gillespie. You are not forgotten, Jean. Josh Bell. You are not forgotten, Josh. Thank you for speaking and bringing out the names of those we've lost. May their memories be a blessing. I know that there are other names being carried in our hearts today. People you have lost in these 2 long years, or who may be long departed, but whose memory you still carry with you every day. We want to let their names be spoken here as well. We will ring our communal wind chime one more time. And this time, while we are all ringing, let those names that are on the tip of your tongue now spill out and be joined together, all overlapping, to float into the buoyant noise of so many delicate bells. We'll take our time and have a long ring this time. Ready? May their names be heard. May their voices live on in our songs. Their courage live on in our commitments. And may their love continue to bless the world. Amen. Now I invite the members of our choir to come up to the front and let us all join in hearing today's anthem, Sing On.
Please just tell you a little bit about this song. On March 10th, 2020, almost exactly a year and a half ago this week, the Skagit Valley Chorale in Washington State met for rehearsal before they knew the dangers of the pandemic for singing. And dozens of people contracted the virus and several people passed away. And this was the first super spreader event going into a choir, which all of the singers and the choirs all around the world, this was the event that told everybody that choral singing will never be the same again. And reverberated around the world and still affects us today. Interestingly, the piece that they were singing is this piece that we're about to share with you. This was what they were singing at rehearsal. And what I love about this piece is that the key to persevering in times like this is right there in the text that they were singing in that rehearsal. So today we're going to sing about needing to find the will to keep singing on.
Sing on.
Wishing I could change what life has handed me, fearing I can't face what's in store. So deep inside I know I've got to let my life unfold, and it serves music in my soul. Sing on, whatever comes your way, sing on. Sing on, keep the music flowing from your heart until the day is past and gone. Take the time to look around and find the things that keep you singing on. Sing on. Sunrise and sunset, time will always rise and fall. Ups and downs and in between, it happens to us all. So music flowing strong. You'll find a way to carry on. Sing on, sing on, sing on, sing on. There's always a way to find the things that keep you singing on. Sing on. Find a way to sing
Wow. I have words here in my manuscript thanking the choir, but I literally started crying in the first measure of music. Oh, what a joy it is to have you back again singing with us. All right, now is the time for us to walk back to our shared altar. If you've left a photo or memento there already, you're invited to walk back and place a candle near it in memory of your loved one. And if you didn't bring a photo, that's okay. You're still invited to participate as much or as little as you like. You can add your leaves to our memory trees or add a candle to the altar in place of whatever memento you would have brought. Candles are on your table in the baskets, as well as in the basket just before the altar at a low table on the left. We have a few real flame candles in jars, but because of the wind, the electric tea lights are far more likely to stay lit. We will take this slow, no rush, and be patient with each other. We have one big central aisle which we'll use to walk back to the altar and then just keep going around the sides and back to your seat to try and prevent a line or a big crowd forming at the back. You can start with the people on the lawn first, and then the front row tables, first the right tables, then the left tables, second row, right, left, and so on, until everyone who wants to has been to the altar. Take as much time as you need there. Place as many candles as you feel moved to. And feel free to speak aloud any names or prayers that come to your heart. If you're watching from home, you might light your own candle. Take a moment to breathe and be present with the memories of your own loved ones who are no longer with you. Benjamin and Juan are going to provide us with some meditative accompaniment, and I encourage all of us to use this time as we wait for our turn at the altar, as we're at the altar, after we return to our tables, to let our minds rest on all the many places, people, and stories that are represented here today. Let your own memories surface, and if you find that you need to laugh, or cry, or lay your head down on the table and just rest your eyes, please do. Now, those on the lawn, you are invited to rise and process back to the altar to get us started placing candles. And then we'll proceed with the front row and so forth. Benjamin and Juan?
Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me,
comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort
Comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul.
There's so much we don't know about the mysteries of life in the universe. Why are we here? What are we? Who are we? But one thing we know, we are profoundly connected. The roots of the trees around us look independent from a casual observation. They each stand on their own trunk. And yet, if we look under the surface, there is an intertwining of roots that is complex, that is brilliant, that is interwoven into tapestries of life-giving sustenance. On this day, at this time, we give thanks for all those who've gone before us. We don't know where, we don't know what. But we can know that under the surface, there are interconnections of mystery that are beyond the scope of what we see. Let us now take a moment of silence to honor this space, this time, and the deep crying in our hearts. Amen. Thank you, everybody, thank you. Each Sunday here at UUCUC, we make space to share the joys and the sorrows that are closest to our hearts. What joys, what sorrows do you carry with this morning? Let them rise to the surface now. And if you wish them to be shared aloud with the congregation, if you haven't yet, you put them in the joys and sorrows at joysandsorrows@uucuc.org. Together, we are going to hear a blessing song written by Chopin entitled The Funeral March. And then Reverend Sally will share aloud the joys and sorrows of this community. And if yours didn't make it this morning and would like it to be, we will have it in the e-news. But know that it is cared about. You are cared about, whether you are at home or here under this beautiful ceiling with us together. We are together.
A concern from Allie Newbold, who writes, after all these months, while my cancer had no treatment whatsoever, it's now rampant throughout bones and liver, yet I'm soon to be without my familiar oncologist. Also, though I had an allergic reaction to chemo in October, they'll be repeating that dose later this month. A joy from Allie. So grateful to my dear friend for bringing me to this glorious fall day remembrance service today, and to the many welcoming UU faces who lift my heart daily. From Carolyn Knox. Today I'm remembering my grandparents, Professor Carl B. Lohman and Jane Lohman, longtime members of the Urbana Unitarian Church and the then UU Green Street. My grandfather Lohman was a long-serving commissioner of the Urbana Park District and worked to improve Crystal Lake Park, including the bridge that spans the lagoon. He was a founding member of the Champaign County Forest Preserve. A sorrow, the 3 benches around the lagoon in Crystal Lake Park were placed there in honor of my mother, Betty Lohman Fawcett, also a longtime member. She grew up in and was married in the Unitarian Church of Urbana. In 1946, she loved autumn. Her memorial service was in UUCUC in the fall, and I miss her. Crystal Lake Park is the ultimate green sanctuary. Carolyn also writes that she feels sorrow for the Native people who were displaced years ago and whose graveyard is being dug up around Leal Park on University Avenue without discussion on who is still buried there. A sorrow from Sandy Finnerty, who writes, my brother-in-law Mark McNeil of St. Petersburg, Florida, recently died. He had 90 healthy years full of his interests in cartography, astronomy, music, poetry, football, and Celtic culture. We will miss him. A memory from Jerry Carden, who writes, my brother Steve would have turned 70 tomorrow. We lost him 30 years ago to depression and suicide. From Tegan Stanowski, thrilled to announce that my 6-year-old son was able to get his first COVID vaccine yesterday. I am so grateful for the opportunity to protect him and his friends. Memory from Chris Hanauer. Remembering my mother, Barbara Hanauer, who would have turned 75 this week. I think of her every day. Joy from Sam Bashirs. For family members who could easily have been no longer with us, but who still are. A joy from a cell number ending in 2419. A joy to celebrate All Souls on this beautiful Sunday morning. And a joy and sorrow from Beth Simpson. Immense gratitude for the beautiful gathering yesterday to celebrate Laura Wieskamp. Words can't express how much it meant. Amen. Thank you all so much for sharing. And thank you too for listening to one another. Let us hold these joys and sorrows together with love and tenderness. May we have the strength we need to meet all that this moment requires. Now I invite us to once more hear from our choir and take this opportunity to sink into the music for a moment of prayer and meditation. Peace I leave with you, and may your joy be full. As we get ready to extinguish our chalice, move into the postlude, and close our time together, remember to thank all the volunteers who helped make today happen, those wearing rainbow lanyards and all our musicians. I also invite everyone to walk back and spend some more time by the lit altar before leaving today to see the many faces and lives being honored there. If you're leaving right after we close and need to retrieve something from the altar, please do so. But if you're able to stay for the congregational conversation on our COVID guidelines, we'll be leaving the altar up until we're all done and leaving the park after that. And if some members of your family are staying for the COVID Q&A and others aren't interested, know that there will be a healing through play session toward the back out on the green, and all ages and stages are invited to participate if COVID Q&As aren't your thing. It has been truly a gift to be together today, and I look forward to seeing all of you in the future. May we give thanks for this precious day, for those gathered here and those far away. Thank you, truly, for everything you choose to be. And when you go, go in peace.
We extinguish our chalice with these shared words written by Unitarian Universalist minister, Reverend Elizabeth Selly Jones. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Thank you.